That is Roysdale Ford talking about Norton. Now they complain a lot about racism and everything else, but it is another tool. I've seen them setting up a new organization to condemn, to fight racism, another institute here, mirroring the institute that the criminal who is ensconced in the US trying to extort people, Rickford Burke here, he has an institute, and no doubt they're impregnated by the similar idea that this could work in Guyana, but we'll expose it. This institute that they just created, it was launched in West Coast Berbice a couple of days ago to fight discrimination. Roysdale Ford was the main speaker. So I'm hoping that they will do this. They went to complain to the US about racism by the congressional delegation, by the PPP, and the delegation didn't have a single Indo-Guyanese. It's everywhere that the only multi-ethnic party in this country, by support and by practice, is the People's Progressive Party. This party here, which is the headquarters here today, the only one. By policies, by practice, and by philosophy, and by its history. We're the only multi-ethnic party in this country. We don't put together. For the APNU, listen to David Hines again. David Hines said the only reason Ramjatan and Nagamotu were part of the coalition is to bring a few Indian votes over to us. That's their only, he said they serve only one purpose. And I saw Rickford Burke, when he realized that like it was being recorded, he ran to the phone that was recording the comment. This was in a private meeting that they had, but it's in the public domain now. That is how you see it. So we need to confront this issue in a frontal manner, this racism issue. And we're prepared, as I said before, to show on our track record that when we're in office, all the people benefited from the PPP's stewardship. The whole country makes progress, and we work for all of our people, regardless of their race, their religion, their class. They all make progress. That's the philosophy of the party. We now know which is the racist party in the country. We have seen today, I wanted to go through a number of other issues, but we're going to have many chances of doing so. I wanted it to be purely party because I would have another press conference to deal with government issues. But we in the People's Progressive Party, we're getting ready. We've already been assessing candidates across the country. We haven't decided on any firmly. The executive of the party will meet before maybe in the next couple of weeks to look at all the candidates. We're in consultation now across the country, so settling many areas. I can say that there are a number of people who are formerly APNU members and councillors who have expressed a desire to be part of our list and our campaign. We welcome everyone. We may not be able to accommodate everyone on our list of candidates, but many have pledged to work for the party. We are hoping that in the city and other areas like New Amsterdam, areas that we've never controlled before, Linden, that people recognize that since independence, these areas have been controlled by APNU administrations, PNC administrations, with very little support for the people that they serve. So in the city, we have a council that just collects taxes and spends the money on itself. Although roads, drainage, garbage collection, repair of municipal facilities, all of these things fall under the city council. They've done none of it. The central government fixes every road in the city. Now, every road in New Amsterdam, every road in Linden, because they don't do any of that, we have built a garbage site at the cost of over maybe $12 million for the city garbage to go to at Eccles. We assist with drainage. Almost the whole city is taken over by the central government. If you look at the improvement programs now, it's all done by the central government. All the city council does here and in these other areas, they just collect taxes and spend on themselves, on wages and salaries. So we are hoping to work to change all of this. The same level of dynamism and accountability that we brought at the national level, we can do so at these municipalities, but we need to get an opportunity to. And so we've been making our case to the citizens of the city and the other communities, these areas, not to vote on the basis of history, but to vote on the basis of track record. That is what we have been arguing for. The manifesto, people who have made progress in the area, not a parking meter scandal like you know what they had in the city, but who will put real parking for the citizens of the city. A project that we're embarked upon shortly with concrete drains to the city and a whole range of other improvement programs, and not just the city, but right across the country. So we're getting ready for these local government election campaign, but I want you the citizens of the country, to look at the trend. The trend is to have the fossils re-emerge, the gold cerans, and every day there is a new statement by someone who's suddenly concerned about accountability. Couldn't talk a gold ceran who was Auditor General for most of the 10 years when not a single audited account for the country was presented in the pre-92 period. He could have resigned if he had integrity. The job of the Auditor General is to audit the public accounts of the country. If you don't produce audited public accounts, you don't have a work job. So he sat there almost 8 of the 10 years when no public accounts were presented for the whole country, and didn't even resign, or if he had any integrity would have done that. Today comes to complain about this. Every single year from 92 to 2023, public accounts have been audited for this country from 1992. Prior to that, it was 1982 that audits were done. 10 years gap. And so I've seen them in the past. You recall the AFC and everything else. I don't know where these individuals were when ministers were giving contracts to themselves. You recall that in the APNU period, when the $420 billion were spent without parliamentary approval, that Jordan spent money on a whole range of things, including capital budget, when there was no budget. It's unconstitutional. We had to fix it. We didn't go and charge him because we're just tired. All day long we'd be running behind these people in court. And so we have documented where was Kulsaran when the $600 million was missing from the Durban Park project and all of these issues. Suddenly he appears again, election season. So please watch out for them. They would be in the newspapers every day. And let me make one thing clear. We went to the electorate of this country. We got their support. They voted for the PPP to fix power, to get the cost down, etc. We are accountable to the electorate of this country, not to fringe or individuals who have vested interests, often to see nothing happens in this country because of their bitterness with the past, as I said before, the fossils of the past. And I'm sorry that I have to use these words, but I've seen them over and over manifesting themselves. These people will not give the young people of this country a break, their future. They're like a big burden on our backs, not a progressive burden that you can carry that would ultimately yield better results, but something that just intended on slowing progress in the country when they have not a single bit of integrity. We've seen it with the GHRA, all their ducks are in a row. And then we found quite a few ducks that were not in a row. Many of the ducks swam away. And now they're trying to switch. They issue a statement today to switch it. What about other organizations? What about other organizations? But their ducks swam away. All their ducks were in a row. And then disingenuously trying to link it with the EITI. It has nothing to do with the EITI. You shouldn't even be on the EITI if you don't have transparency. You have a defunct organization. And I wonder, because they said they have audited statements, but these haven't been submitted to the registrar. If they don't have annual audited statements, how do we know how much money they collected over the years and what they expended it on, and from whom they basically collected it? What's its source of income? It is that when you probe a little bit deeper, you find a lot of rot in these organizations and these individuals, a lot of rot. So today, I'm just saying that the People's Progressive Party, and the government headed by Irfan Ali, they have remained faithful to what we promised the electorate. They worked very hard in the past 2.5, 3 years to reorient this country on a track to prosperity, away from the doom and gloom period of APNU, where everything was a problem, away from high taxation and no future for many industries and lack of jobs and loss of welfare, to a country that is growing rapidly in all of its manifestations, where more people are getting jobs, so much so we have labor shortages in some skill areas now, and the welfare has been expanded. And within a short period of maybe 2.5 years, we will see a revolution in things like healthcare and the services provided to our people. That's where the resources are being spent and the effort is being focused. So we were extremely proud of our record, and we're getting ready for the campaign on local government elections. Thank you. You can just speak. I don't know if you need the microphone or you can just, okay, go on.
You said that it's concerning the list of candidates that you haven't gone through and selected anyone is here. I ask this because there's a flyer with Mr. Mohammed.
Yeah.
Nazar Mohammed. With the PPP CEO, it's kind of like
So when the team, the cluster from Eccles Ramberg came to us, they suggested him, and we, in principle, that was agreed to, all of the constituency candidates. But that still has to be received final approval at the party level. Until then, and in principle, it has been agreed to. That was a suggestion from the Eccles Ramberg cluster that came up there.
I'm just following up.
Huh? No. There were all the constituency candidates. There were several No. There were lots of suggestions there. So for that constituency, yes, for that constituency. But there are several constituencies. So that is what I'm wrapping up now, because I'm having discussions with all the clusters. We have about 80 clusters around the country in each area, and in Georgetown we even have more. We have about another in the city itself, and maybe 15 clusters, because there are 15 constituencies, and therefore the suggestions have come in. We say, yes, in principle, these names are agreed to, or you got to go back and change some names. And then once all of those are agreed to, we'll have one meeting with everyone to baptize it.
Just checking if in principle also Mr. Matthias, if his name is something for
I don't want to comment on people's names at this point in time, because that I've seen that in the public domain too. That is why I commented on this issue. But I don't want to. When we launch our campaign, you will see the names. There is a period, I think it's next month, in April, the names have to be submitted, the nominations have to be made. So at that time you will see the campaign launch.
What are you looking for your candidates? I'm asking that based on the response to ourselves, particularly because Mr. Mohammed is the one who's a lot of this one, but also sir has got Ms. Mohammed has got the contracts, which can prove in some cases to be a conflict of interest.
Sure.
Transparency and accountability. Is that something you want the meeting says something?
All right, you made a point, yes, so I don't need more. So we give each of the clusters a list of criteria that a party would like to see in the candidates. So they must have adequate time to go to the meetings. They have to be faithful to the manifesto of the area. And one of the criteria is that they will not be able to tender for contracts in the NDC in which they are councillors. So if you intend to tender in that area, in the NDC where you're councillor, do not put your name on the list, because for the first time now, we are prohibiting that from happening, because we have had a few instances in the past where we found that some of the councillors were tendering for contracts in their own NDCs or municipalities. And so there is a prohibition now that we said to the people, that was one of the criteria. Do not put your name forward if you intend to do this. So that is it. But they can, because this is a big country, you can tender anywhere else because you're not in control there, but not in the NDC in which you're running. In all constituencies, in all local government bodies, yes.
Certain party does not have this part of Congress in all that. Is there a time like this? First of all, why has the party
Yeah, so we discussed this at the executive. The timeline is towards the end of the year or early next year.
And reasons why you have not.
We came out of the COVID period, and so the COVID period was one of those two.
Is that
Yes.
From everything you said today, it seems to be more prepared for these elections than anyone in the party. I wanted to know your internal projection of how the party will perform in those elections. And particularly those PS strong.
Sure.
What's the expectation?
So we're not one to gloat about what likely outcomes will be. We believe in working hard for all of these communities. So our biggest concern is complacency. Our biggest concern is complacency in the base, in the party's base, because people believe that we will win the elections already. And in some areas where there is no other party contesting, so you just have one party basically contesting in the area, you have a low turnout, extremely low turnout. So turnout at local government elections has always been a factor in the elections. But no doubt the PPP will do well in these elections, extremely well. I didn't get that. It's a bit muffled. Yeah.
Your candidates, given what we know so far of who's selected, is that trend and seeing in a way more from like political members and go towards more?
No. So in the last elections, we said where possible in 2018 that we were going for a model with 50% civic and 50% PPP members. So that's the rough guidance to the clusters. So in some areas you may have a few more party members than the 50%, and in some areas you have more civic than 50% and less, party members less than 50%. So that has always been the model. PPP civic. These are people who don't have membership cards. They want to contribute to the community. They want to make a difference. They're welcome as part of the PPP civic. And at the national level too. Even now, we have at the national level, we have had an influx of people wanting to join the party, young people particularly, and a lot of them are coming into the party, and a lot of young people who want to be part of the civic. So they're not political oriented, but they like our program, they like where the country is going, and so they want to be part of the civic too. And so they're accommodated. Our model is a big model. It's all, we allow this to happen. Yes, please. Good afternoon. No, mainly party today. Party usually.
I wanted to get as General Secretary for the PPC's position on this whole issue of inclusive governance. I don't know if you remember Mr. Ramkran had written a thing a couple of weeks ago saying that the PPP's manifesto has constitutional reform and we have mentioned inclusive governance, but constitutional reform in a sense without inclusive governance and the party's position on what it thinks is inclusive governance isn't valid if there isn't some aspect or programs or policies geared towards inclusive governance.
I've not read what Ramkaran said, but clearly people, when they talk about inclusive governance, they're speaking about power sharing. I think ultimately they're talking about it. And so when I was president, we did a paper that was launched towards inclusive countries in the world in terms of governance. First of all, let me go back through these provisions because sometimes people forget them, that there was a different era, a different type of constitution versus the one we have today. Under the Burnham Constitution, the parliament was managed by the party in power with the speaker. In the new constitution, we have a parliamentary management committee with 5 persons on both sides, and the speaker chairs it. So that's the first feature. That's the new constitution that I signed into law in the early 2000s. So that changed radically the way parliament now is governed. 5 plus 1, the speaker chairs that. In the new constitution, it has 5 rights commission. To sit on the rights commission, you have to have 2/3 vote from the National Assembly on the organizations. So that means bipartisan support. No party controls 2/3 of the votes in the parliament. So bipartisan collaboration to put together the 5 rights commission. Indigenous people, ethnic relations, human rights, gender, and what's the other one? You media. You can't remember? Or your old age? Ethnic relations. Yeah, the indigenous people, children, the rights of the child, the children. So these are the 5. Gender, children, indigenous people, human rights, ethnic relations. 5. So that means collaboration to put together 5 commissions. The commissions often have powers of sanction over the executive. You tell me which constitution in the Commonwealth has those commissions and with such powerful commissions. The Ethnic Relations Commission can prohibit a political party from contesting elections if they use race as a mobilizing factor. Which constitution in the world has that? So those are the 5 commissions. That is inclusive governance too, at the parliamentary level. We then establish the 4 standing committees. Human rights, the social services, economic services, foreign affairs, and natural resources. 4, in the United States, the party that has the majority heads all the committees, the standing committees. In this case, we said 2 will be chaired by the government, 2 by the opposition, and then you switch the chairmanship. That's inclusive governance too, there at the parliamentary level. We put in place the Procurement Commission. You know how you have to compose this. Collaboration between the 2 parties. I can go on and on. There are about 8 or 9 other features. These are all to promote inclusive governance. But that was not this. Nobody is satisfied with that. Although we have gone beyond most countries in the world to put in place this system for inclusive governance and to put in place not just an institutional mechanism to tackle racial discrimination, because you can go and report to the ERC and they have powers of sanction over the executive. People forget all of that. So when Ramkaran and the others write, these are all features there. In the appointment of the Chancellor and the Chief Justice, we said you have to have the agreement of the leader of the opposition. Look what happened now. Look what happened. We changed it from just consultation to agreement because you want it to be to promote inclusive governance, the two sides collaborating. You have gridlock there. So I suspect that this new form of inclusive governance that they're talking about only has one end, that is executive power sharing. But our point was, if you can't share a common set of values, if you believe in stealing elections and we don't, we can't get along well. If you don't share economic values and other social values or patriotism, or if you're racist, then you can't work with us on this. You have to share common values for that to work, or else you bring the same gridlock that we have in the parliament now into the cabinet and nothing happens. We've seen it. It has stymied many countries. And so that you have to have a period of building trust, and only then you can have that happen. But there's no building trust. In fact, we're going further apart, because every day APNU pushes only one agenda, racism agenda. And they're unwilling to acknowledge and say, we support free, open, democratic elections. They would say it in words, but not really subscribe to it. Those are two fundamental things that have to change before you can work together. And so we're open to that. You're absolutely right that we said in our manifesto that when the constitutional reform is in place and the consultations start taking place, we're open to anything, including the model change at GCOM. But we need to safeguard elections, a model that safeguards elections and free and fair elections. And two, if there's a proposal there that comes out about some form of executive power sharing and it has resonance with the people, maybe you'll have to go to a referendum or something of that sort. But right now, it's just we have made serious efforts in this party to have an institutional framework that promotes greater collaboration and governance, inclusive governance. No country in the Caribbean or in the Commonwealth, I would say, or even further afield, have those features in their constitution. You show me one country that has gone as far as we have gone. But sometimes we don't even recognize what we have done ourselves, because the so-called analysts would never want to talk about that. They would never want to talk about that, because you know why? That will bring credit to the PPP, that it was the PPP that initiated this process of constitutional reform and that we signed it into law. We signed it into law, the new constitution. Yes. I think the police get intimidated by all of these calls, or the police have to act impartially. If they breach the law, then the police have to act swiftly on these matters that can cause a rift among our people. We have to fight racism with every bit of tool that we have in this country. That's the only way this country can have a sustainable future. We have to fight racism. We have equipped the police with a tool. They have the Racial Hostility Act. They have a whole range of tools at their disposal. They have to move swiftly and not be intimidated and have to prove, they're acting impartially or partially, like what Norton is accusing them of. Norton deliberately accuses the police of being partisan because he wants them to get onto the back foot. So that they're cautious, they tiptoe around these issues, and they would not take condign action against these individuals so that they can continue to perpetrate their illegalities. Look at Norton with a straight face saying they continue to occupy illegally the office that doesn't belong to them in Letem. Today he said that. Oh, we're still occupying the office. This is just like how he said he had the SOPs and he can't produce them now, but he got them in his back pocket. And hear what he said. The reason why we wanted to throw them out, because he had 11 barrels of clothing or something there, and he was going to give it to the Amerindians, and he would get some support from them because of this. Read it, please read it for me. You would see how stupid it looks. When they had all the money in the world, they took away from the Amerindians 2,000 jobs. That is about $700 million a year, because that each of those 1,972 persons was earning $30,000 a month, multiplied by 30 times 12 months in the year. And you'll come up with over 700. They took it all away, and now he wants to give them 11 barrels of old clothing, and that is what the PPP was upset with. And we had to go and throw them out of the office because of his 11 barrels of old cloth that he has down there. This is the ridiculousness of our opposition leader, and with impunity. So he's saying these things. He's concerned about the police and the partisan nature, and he has something to release on the police. Release it. If you had it, we would love to. If there's any illegality committed by the police, they too must face the law. They too must face consequences. If you have anything they're doing illegally, please, we'd be happy if you release it, because it helps us to better manage the situation there.
You mentioned earlier that the party has made an EPS for them to cover their transparency. What's your party position in relation to what your party position in transparency going forward? Expense of other companies, like for example, Exxon, the expense of parties has to raise the public scrutiny.
Which organization you're from? Kaichur, of course, Kaichur. I'm not dealing with that again. You have this obsession and the lies you all keep telling every day on this sector. Anyhow, we're dealing with that matter. At my next press conference, I deal with that. I don't want to get bogged down in that now again. I'll deal with that at the state press conference when I have that, about all the transparency issue. And since I'm on a political issue, you should ask the owner of Kaichur News when I'm getting my apology for saying to me that he could get within 2 weeks a company that would supply us and give us a long-term power purchase agreement at 3 cents per kilowatt hour. I even said 5 cents. Up to now, 4 months have passed, and he promised to publicly apologize and put it in the front page of his paper, because he was talking crap, nonsense, pure nonsense. And he does that often, and the nonsense gets reflected every single day in the newspapers. The nonsense. Until now, I'm waiting for that, because that was a political issue. He should by now, because they love to talk about, renewable energy, we can go solar. He was saying he could do it in solar. Well, give us the solar contract at 5 cents per kilowatt hour. So that's my political bit on that. But we'll come back to the other issues there. Yes.
You mentioned that the strategy, one of the key strategies going into the but we focus on strongholds, historical strongholds of the areas like city and Amsterdam.
No, that's not a strategy. I'm saying that we are contesting everywhere. We'll fight a hard campaign in every single one of these areas. But I'm saying that there are some areas where we have never won these areas. And we're hoping politically that the people will give us an opportunity in these areas to prove that we can put together a stronger development plan and implement it than they have ever done.
On that basis, is where I'm asking my question. Focusing on Georgetown.
Yeah, sure.
What is the party promising the citizens of Georgetown that would be different than?
So, one, greater accountability in the city council, greater accountability and stewardship of the funds of the city council. That once there is greater accountability, an increased flow of money to the city council itself, because right now there's no accountability there. You give them money for one thing, they spend it for something else. Often it's something that doesn't bring benefits to the people of this country, or the city. So greater accountability, a more focus on development. The group in the city hall, they don't focus on development. It's an attitude, it's a mindset. If you're focused on development, like when I drive down the road now, this morning I'm driving down, I see Kitty coming through, I can see about 10 different sets of problems. Because every day you're focused on solving problems. I come up the East Coast, I see people building driveway right onto the public road. We got to talk to people on them. You can't come on to a 4-lane highway just like that. Those kinds of things, those people drive past, they don't see it. It's a mindset that you have for development. And they don't have that mindset. PNC doesn't have it. So, yeah.
Bharat Jagdeo,
Yes.
as much as the elections are local government elections, it's different from general elections. Last elections took 5 months to get results. Last the PDP expressed the GCOM's interest in having a timeline for election results.
Oh, okay. I didn't get that point. Sorry. Yeah, you.
The last election results took 5 months. Okay. As the PDP expressed the GCOM's interest in a timeline for election results.
So, as you know, there is a new law now, Representation of the People Act. If the law was amended, and the law now creates a set of, in fact, let me just say this, change that. So what it does, it allows less capricious behavior on the part of the GCOM staff, particularly the Chief Elections Officer. So starting from registration all the way to the declaration of results, we've identified publicly, and we had consultations on every problem that we've experienced, not just in these elections, but in previous elections. And we've sought through the new law to plug those loopholes. So how registration is done, the transparency surrounding registration, how preparation of elections would be done. So for example, a manual has to be prepared by the Chief Elections Officer, submitted to all the political parties before the elections, the media, and published in the media. So we then know exactly what the role of each of the officials at the polling place will be. So what's the role and the responsibilities of the presiding officer, the party agent, etc. So when, for example, we had the boxes on the East Coast, where Mingo changed the instructions and said to those people, don't put some of the documents in the boxes, but for the rest of the country, those documents were in the boxes. And then APNU, the presiding officers carried those documents, gave it to Mingo directly. Then APNU complained where those documents they're missing. So now in the manual it will say these are the documents. 10 documents here are documents that have to be in the box. The others will remain with the party agents or with the presiding officer. So you don't have any room for capricious behavior. Everybody would have a copy of the manual. They'll do this. How counts are conducted. So in the same law, I'm just jumping a little bit. So once the elections are held and we have statements of poll, before the count starts at the regional level, like Mingo's level, with the RO, all of the statements of poll have to be published. So you as citizen, you could have your calculator, and you could, even before the tabulation is done at the RO level, you'd have all the statements of poll. You can then do your own calculations. You will see who won the elections, like what the parties do. Like on the night, by 5 in the morning, I knew we won the elections because we were going through all night, going through the results. They were being called in, some of the statements of poll being faxed. I knew by 5 a.m. in the morning that we won the election. So the country will know that long before they start tabulating. So if anybody tries to sneak in something different, then you're going to have big trouble when the RO is tabulating. So those kinds of things are in the place. You have to establish polling places. So we said how polling places will be established. So you have to, within a certain boundary, you have to have a polling place based on physical distance and number of people. So you can't, like the night before, you remember what the issue we had at Fowles, that they wanted the voters from Fowles to come all the way into Paradise, miles and miles away to vote. It would have been impossible. At the night, almost the night before the elections, we got that change. And they had to build tents in Fowles for people to vote there, because people will not travel very far distances to vote, and they wanted that to happen. So a chief elections officer cannot now say, I'm going to use the establishment of polling places to disenfranchise people or to create hardships for them to vote. All of this is in the new law now. So we expect the new law would be observed faithfully.
Dr. Jagdeo, does the PPP have the trust in the Guyana Police Force, and like the fact that members of the Guyana Police Force clearly participated in attempts to help to steal the election by removing observers from the Region 4 office? Things that happened with members of the Guyana Police Force. Instructions were given. Recently, Mr. Ogunse asked members of the Guyana Police Force to turn their guns on the people, get the Guyana Police Forces to act on that. In many cases, do you think the Guyana Police Force will be able to provide adequate security and be professional at the upcoming elections?
This question is often asked, and I'm very proud of how far our discipline services have come in terms of professionalism. If you look at the early period, almost the entire leadership of the PNC, the Army, came through the YSM, which was the youth arm of the PNC. There was political recruitment. The Army, as we know now, was used to steal the ballot boxes. I saw that as a boy myself. Yeah, soldiers come in at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, carried away the boxes. They threw the polling agents out. So they couldn't follow the boxes. So that's documented. And over the years, we've worked very hard. The 20-odd years in the Army, in office, to move our soldiers and the Army away from supporting a party to being faithful to the Constitution of this country and to the Defense Act. And I must say, I'm very proud of that evolution, because people may support parties individually, and anybody is free to vote, whether you're a soldier or a policeman, for whomever you want to. But as an institution, these institutions have grown enormously. And so it wasn't that there wasn't provocation and attempts to get the Army to play a role in the 2020 elections. There were many PNC leaders who were urging the Army leadership to take a partisan position and to intervene. And the Army did not. They stood up professionally. And so, whilst there were elements in the police force who were partisan and part of the plot to steal the elections, as the COI demonstrated, there were many people with integrity in the police force who stood up against that plot. So as an institution, the police force has performed professionally. There are many individuals who have not performed professionally. And those people, they have no place in similar institutions, in the police or the Army. Shouldn't be there. People should remain faithful to the Constitution of this country or to the act under which they operate. And so the ethnic composition of the Army has not changed, but they have demonstrated professionalism. And so the experience of Guyana is one that we should really be proud of, because when they sought to make it about ethnic issues, we had Bartland, Scotland, an Afro-Guyanese, prominent Afro-Guyanese person who stood up against APNU, although he was named by APNU as a speaker. He stood up when they tried to get him to change his position on the no confidence motion. And it was the Chief Justice of Guyana, not an Afro-Guyanese woman, who also ruled that the no confidence vote was valid, and ruled throughout the election process when there was an attempt to steal the elections, gave the injunction. And then the Army and the police, made up mainly of Afro-Guyanese. So it's a proud kind of thing. This is the country that we live in, and we should really be proud of ourselves, because people try to make us out as a basket case. All of those who come abroad and the few naysayers that someday that we're going to trigger each other. We've lived together. We've overcome slavery, indentureship. We have worked together, lived together. We have a common future in this country. And in spite of all the provocations and the divisions. And so every time these guys, that's all they want, race to split us, pull us apart again. And there are people who have stood up and they have integrity and they act professionally. So for me, the police and the Army as institutions, they're professional bodies, and we hope that they'll remain so. We do everything to encourage a growth in professionalism. It's getting our people more qualified and all of that. But on this matter, they need to act condignly with some of these individuals who are breaking the law.
One last question, Dr. Jagdeo. During the last election, I went across this country covered story where the intimidation was used to disenfranchise people from voting. Claims of ID card fraud and ID cards being sold, Montreux Sisters Village, attacks on people at Traskey. What is the party doing to ensure that nobody is disenfranchised? Everybody has an opportunity on election day, free of fear.
Yes, fair. Oh, that's what we need to step up. We need to step up. That's where dealing with people in a manner that is like harsh, but in accordance with the law. You hopefully would send the right signal that this sort of behavior, the intimidatory behavior, will not be tolerated. And that's what we need to do. We need to send a strong message that people will have the freedom in this country that is enshrined and given to them by our Constitution, and that the state and the government will protect those freedoms. Freedom to protest, freedom to speak freely and to contest against the government. But when they cross thresholds, then they can't claim freedom of speech, like what Norton is saying. Freedom of speech. The man has freedom of speech. He crossed the line here. I have freedom of speech to say Norton is the worst leader ever in the history of the PNC. So that's me exercising freedom of speech. But I can't say it, go and harm Norton, because that is an incitement. It's wrong. And even on the police thing. So I'm pleased because I've seen a lot of issues with the latest report, the State Department report that was recent, and I've seen a lot of spin on that, everybody doing the spin. So what I did, I just looked through quickly, and I seen Mr. Nandalal issue a statement about some factual errors in the report. And there are many factual errors, and we will correct them. For example, the APA has now complained to the US that they can't meet ministers now to talk about the land titling activity. But the APA was part of the APNU coalition because the head of the APA was the deputy leader of their list. And it was the APA that was undermining Amerindian land rights by agreeing that with Granger that Amerindian land rights would fall under the commission, the Land Reform Commission, the commission that we've had. It was the PPP and the National Two-Shows Council, but led mainly by the PPP, that opposed this. So Granger had to reverse course, but he didn't call the Two-Shows Council to speak with them. He called in the APA as State House when he reversed course, but we fought it off. It was the PNC, their coalition partner, the APA coalition partner, that they dismantled the Amerindian land titling unit, where we had left $10.2 million to continue Amerindian land titling. When we got into office, we resumed Amerindian land titling. And they went to the US and complained, and it's in the report, that they can't meet us now to discuss Amerindian land titling. We're not discussing this with APA. APA has no standing there. It is the villages. That's where the discussions are taking place. And we passed a law that outlined the process through which you apply and you get secure your titles. So we don't need to discuss that with the APA. We need to do that. So there are many factual errors in the report. and we intend to correct those. But there are a number of definitive statements made by the State Department report that when taken as a whole, you would see the characterization of this government. So number one, it says the government took steps to identify, prosecute, and punish officials who committed human rights abuses or engaged in corruption. That's a definitive statement by the State Department report. I read it back. The government took steps to identify, prosecute, and punish officials who committed human rights abuses or engaged in corruption. 2, there were no reports of disappearances or on or by or on behalf of the government. 3, members of both ethnicities held senior leadership positions of the government. So they're saying that in the government, they were talking about Afro-Guyanese and Indo-Guyanese, that the two parties are primarily their support come from Indo-Guyanese and Afro-Guyanese, but they made a definitive statement. Members of both ethnicities held senior leadership positions in the government. 4, several domestic human rights groups generally operated without government restriction. 5, there are no reports of political prisoners or detainees. 6, independent news media were active and expressed a wide variety of views without restrictions. Those are key issues. Press freedom, no political prisoners. You have people of every race in the government. The government investigates and punishes people for human rights abuse and corruption. These are strong, definitive statements made in that report. So they're nitpicking, oh, the APA complained here and stuff. Now, we're not concerned about the complaints too much because we have answers to those. These are the key messages from that report. That's it. Well, thank you for being here today.